Welcome everyone. Really happy to have all of you here.
It is really a great thing to see all my fintech friends together. So, for those who are meeting for the first time, I'm Babu Nair. I'm the publisher of Banking Frontiers, and we have also started Financial Technology Frontiers, which is our North American arm, which is going to be expanding our fintechs and our technology companies to extend into the North American market, which is the world's largest market. And right now, we are just taking up one very interesting topic on securing experiential engagements in the banking and financial sector with a lot of trust.
I gave a background about the organization Banking Frontiers. I'm the group editor. Mr. Babu Nair is the group publisher. Both of us founded this company in 2001, and we've been at it, and we have been enjoying it. And we have made so many acquaintances and friends and expanded our network. It's been a lovely experience.
I'm Suraj Shetty. I had customer experience and learning and development for Kisht. So we have two brands, Kisht and Ring, which are fintech companies, and we are into personal loans and consumer durable loans at Kisht. And at Ring is a separate platform that we have, which is for small retailers and wholesalers, wherein we give working capital loans to these retailers, and also we help them extend credit to their end customers.
This is Krishnakant Mane. I'm the founder, director, and CTO of Bookmatic Private Limited. It's a fintech company with its flagship product, Online Khata. It is basically specially meant for small and micro businesses, and we have a unique, one of its kind system wherein against all the bills, invoices, receipts, payments, the accounting entries are fully automated.
Hi, I'm Archit Jain from Atisha Limited. I have a fintech product called Zappers. We are a banking correspondent for more than 7 banks. And through our 23,000 plus micro agents, we provide door-to-door banking services like domestic money remittance, Aadhaar payouts, and other ancillary services which are there for the end customers to use.
Hi, my name is Deepak. I represent NPST. We are into payment processing. We majorly work into the real-time payment, UPI, IMPS, and the super app for banks. We process about 7 to 8% of country's UPI volume. There are two segments majorly. One is where we play a technology partner role to banks, empowering them with the digital payment ecosystem. Second is where we bridge the gap between bank and fintech, giving them the platform, the API banking solution, or the overall technology piece which a fintech requires from the banking ecosystem.
Hi, I'm Srivat Swadarajan, representing Spice Money. Spice Money is India's largest rural fintech. We have got around about 1.2 million merchants across Tier 3 and Tier 4, across Pan India. And we have 3 stacks. One is payment stacks, in which we serve the end rural customers through B2B2C, through this 1.2 million merchants. We have AEPS, DMT, we have got cash in, cash out, and CMS and other capabilities built in. We also have platforms created for travel merchants to serve the end consumers in the form of travel tech, and also started lendtech organizations where we provide lending solutions to end merchants for their working capital requirement, and we'll be venturing into B2C space as well, both in terms of payment space as well as lendtech.
Hi, my name is Rajesh Desai. I'm the CEO, the MD, and the co-founder of a company called Lyra Network. We're a 17-year-old company in India. It's a tech fin plus a fintech, and we work majorly with almost all the banks in India and fintech.
We are mostly a technology service provider. We operate as a PSP in the Middle East as well as in India. We have multiple products in our technology stack, the primary being payment aggregation. We have payouts for both domestic and cross-border remittances for UAE and India. We also have a metaverse built for experiential e-commerce, as well as we are also targeting virtual banking this year.
Hi, myself Rajesh Kurkute. I'm a SVP technology for the SafeXpay, and other details actually Rahul has given.
Hi, good evening everyone. I am representing FidiPay. We are a full-stack API platform, primarily solving B2B payables and receivable cases using open API platforms. We are one of the, I would say, rightly placed to the connected banking piece on the B2B scale. We are solving enterprises, governments, and cooperatives at large.
Okay.
As of now, we have over 200 cooperative banks, around 500 government institutions, and another 600 plus B2B clientele at large in the industry.
Hi everyone, good evening. Myself Pranjal, I represent Zaggle here today. I joined Zaggle 6 months back with the mandate to expand the payment form factor beyond the prepaid cards which Zaggle has been doing. Zaggle was founded in 2011, has been in the business of digitizing business spends and expenditure so far.
Myself Gaurav Pathak, and I am heading the technology for the EVSCAS Global Services. We are into the contact center and CRM solutions company. So we are providing services to major banks, retail banking, and major BFSI client, insurance, fintech, and clients.
Hi everyone, my name is Vamsi and I represent Fi Commerce. We are basically a Pune-based fintech. We are a PA like Lyra, what Rajesh has mentioned. We just got our in-principle approval from RBI. So we run three types of businesses. One is the online payment aggregation, and we also run the offline, which is on the on the EDC machines or the POS. Probably one of the first omni-channel payment gateways to go live, and we also run our own technology business where we lend our technology to very large payment processor schemes.
This is Kunal Shah, and I represent AirPay. We are also a PA. We got our in-principle approval sometime early this year.
Okay.
And we have broadly two lines of business in India. One is for the PAPG side of business where it's payment processing, whether online, offline. And the other bit is the last mile distribution through banking correspondent network. Okay. So we also have a banking correspondent network.
Hi everyone, I am Ved Prakash and I lead the Thales business for India. We are a French company primarily into payment security, and we come up with a technology stack that does a lot of work around cryptography and the processes involved around it, especially securing the PIN, the transactions that are very critical in the payment ecosystem. I would also like to tell you that Thales is into big time providing this experiential nature of payment by offering something called wearable pay. Now, Tappy Technologies is our niche partner, and Thales provides the chip which can be embedded in any form factor. It could be your watch, it could be a ring, and it works as your debit or a credit card. I mean, it works as a credit card. The way you have the MasterCard, the Visa card in a physical form factor, you can enable it in any of those wearable form factors. So in India, Axis Bank is one of the customers who have gone ahead. Similarly, there are other large banks for their premium or the customers whom they want to kind of cater it in a different way from those. I mean, those are the experiential payment solutions that is also being offered. This is primarily to sensitize you about the readiness for that. If you have already done it, great. I have seen so many people being prepared, but then I use a saying from Mike Tyson's, which is very relevant to all of us, that we all have a plan till we get punch on the face. And that punch is in terms of any of those breaches that might scare you, ransomware attacks that we keep hearing, insider threats that is again looming, plus regulatory bindings from regulatory mandates under which the business has to work. So these are multiple problem areas. Feel free to let us know if there are some of the pain in these problem areas you relate with, which we are trying to solve this problem with the technology that we kind of offer, and see how does it fits in helping you address these concerns.
Got a very interesting point from what you just said, that you are into those chips and semiconductors. And essentially, we have seen all in the last 2-3 years how semiconductor is the new risk. Shortage of semiconductors have hit so many industries. And on top of that, now we are seeing geopolitics going to play a bigger and bigger role in terms of who will get what kind of semiconductors, 5G chips, 6G chips, AI chips, whatever other kind of chips are out there. So I think that's something to be cautious about, that you should not hit into this chip brick wall unintentionally, unknowingly.
I'm quite happy to see that quite a majority of you are aware of Thales. This is an organization which is pure play into defense, world's third largest defense company. And they have worked into very strategic and sensitive sectors, primarily in supply of tactical weapons, which are used by military, which is used by your Navy, like sonar radar system that has been given, Indian Navy uses it. Rafale as an aircraft that you heard about, there are components that Thales provides in that. There are night vision cameras used for tactical weapons. So it's purely into that. And what's the idea for me to tell you is that where the journey for Thales has been, where this piece of payment security assurance has come in. Primarily, if you see, there are very niche technology products that we have, just very limited to just 3 categories. One category is called crypto processors, or generic name is HSMs. And in HSMs, you have 2 type of HSMs. One that does in your network HSMs, which are primarily used to safeguard your private keys. And HSM means hardware security appliance. It's kind of a safe box in which you put your key and it cannot come out. That's the basic funda for behind it. So, and then the other form factor is payment HSM, which is a PCI certified appliance. And in any of the organizations where you have need for a PCI certified processes, it's mandatory for you to abide by having invested in this stack. The very big piece and the trend that we are forcing in the organizations today is on the data security platform, which basically brings a very, very robust key management practice system in it, which manages the heterogeneous encryption processes in the organization from a centralized console. So these technologies purely on the preventive control side. As it said that prevention is better than cure. This just helps you in mitigating the risk that arise from problems coming from data breaches, which you often hearing from every second or third day that there are PII data that gets breached or gets out from the system and is published in dark web, or just brings a kind of a reputational concern for an organization. And that also become matter of concern because it brings a doubt in the trust factor for your customers who are doing business with you. So that's become very critical in safeguarding the trust piece. Second, I think definitely we discussed about data privacy, which is coming in big way. Primarily in outside India, GDPR has become effective, and that again brings a certain focus into having a privacy enhanced technologies that you need to build in. So this technology from Thales helps you in meeting a lot of data privacy measures along with securing the data or mitigating those risks. Visibility of the data, that's again a big pain for most of the legacy organizations. I have seen that they don't know where all the sensitive data is lying and how do they come to know that this data is sensitive, this data is non-sensitive, this is confidential, this is restricted, this is not restricted. So we have this a tool that helps them to, in a fashion of bringing an automated mechanism that does the discovery and classification with an inbuilt template and helps them to mitigate the risk with the same console. Last piece was about the cloud adoption, which I just talked about. I'm just bringing a point from the research published by IBM saying that they feel that data breaches have caused significant loss to the organizations in tune of more than 12.8 crores within the last 2 years. And most of them who had adopted the piece of technology from the encryption side are able to safeguard these breach-related damages that happen. And the main reason for any kind of data breaches is primarily the fundamental are two-pronged. One is either the compromise on the identity side, or it's just that you are also not keeping the sensitive data encrypted. So that's with that, I think the trend that we are foreseeing, and this is where we would definitely come back the discussion with you, is that organizations are looking today for a technology to encrypt the data at rest and data in motion. And encryption is, while a technology, but how do you manage the encryption key? So success of encryption lies in the key management part. And that's where it's like encryption is a lock, and if when you put a key at the near the lock, it fails the purpose of encryption. So key management is critical piece. Then having the journey in cloud, how you are managing the keys residing in cloud.
So payment systems face the flux of technology on both the customer facing side and the back end. It's a data center where you do things like encryption and zero trust networks and all those. So from the security thinking journey, as a security journey, thinking journey, move from holistic approach. We think of the customer, the front end, the back end, the other players, partners that you have in the ecosystem. Because it's very easy to buy maybe technology solutions for each small thing. But that would still leave a good number of gaps, right? So you need a more holistic approach. But how are you doing that, given that the whole ecosystem is changing so rapidly for you?
The pace at which the digital transactions are growing in this country, I think we all know that we are the fastest growing and in fact the biggest in the world. But one of the biggest challenge I see is that it's not a challenge. In fact, the ecosystem is now completely interoperable when we talk about the way UPI or the way cards and everything are coming up in India. And when it is all about interoperability, let me tell you that the entire ecosystem is completely connected. So we are actually into payment processing, and this is exactly where we face the challenge. Right from your database to your mobile application to your processing engine, right from data generation, your data transmission, your data processing, and your data storage. You talk about the entire life cycle.
Okay.
Everywhere there is a different value chain. You will have an application developer, you will have a data guy, you will have a data center, you will have an API gateway, you will have a fintech sitting at front end, then you will have a customer somewhere else. So this entire value chain has to be, moving from piecemeal to holistic is not about just building the security pieces around each of that value chain. But do we have a solution across all, binding it together? I think we all know that it's absolutely difficult for now. We don't see such solution coming in, but it's all about the innovation that will come, and it's all about how we bind each and every piece of that value chain and every system coming in pieces.
Now, right from WhatsApp till everyone talks to the individual, talks to the person in the street, talks to a general student, or talks to a professor, talks to any damn person about end-to-end encryption and stuff. So now the users have become sensitized. So that's another thing to consider. Now, talking about holistically, there's a common saying in the technology that people ignore those softwares who ignore user experience. So why this whole thing is now in the common man's mind, and they think about it, and I'll tell you both the aspects, from the technical side as well as the user. From the user experience point of view, because eventually bring your own key or whatever, as a techie person, I know what it used to be for creating a key. Then suddenly we used to have commands creating the 64-bit or 128-bit keys. Everyone knows about SSAs and stuff like that, to be very basic. Later on, things started to happen, and the phone's generating its own key. That there will be systems. Now it has to be seamless, right from the customer's point of view. It has to be seamless. It shouldn't be like, this is something which I have to care for or something. It used to be assured to him, because we are talking about 3 C's. The fourth one is the confidence, which the user should have. When you say, okay, we are secured, how do you prove that we are secured? So there has to be a holistic approach right till the user interface and user experience. At the back end, the challenge is now everything is being distributed into microservices. So there is no single monolithic thing, as a huge server like a mainframe running there. There are microservices who collaborate with each other, and they might have different security layers and security requirements and security infrastructures as well. So again, here when we talk about holistic at the back end as well, the challenge is to often reach consensus about what layers would you choose vis-a-vis what I choose, and also to reach on a consensus where there is an assurity between the common protocols being followed. So that's another thing about the holistic approach.
When you expose your API to someone else, to your partner or to your reseller, then you don't have really the control. And that is where the future is where we need to understand that because of all this data privacy laws which is coming in and GDPR and everything, what kind of security can be brought into that API layer so that the partner is also taking care of that piece into it. Like what we are doing in a payment aggregator business.
Okay.
So something on the security side of the APIs.
I think the kind of focus and concentration that's shown in terms of securing the data when it is a financial transaction, that similar thing is not shown beyond a financial transaction, right? So he was quoting to one IBM survey, I guess, right? The same IBM survey also talks about 1 million student data compromising every year in the US, right?
Oh.
So when you're talking about the student data, it is their parents, their address, phone number, potentially the credit card that the parent has used to pay the fees, or debit card, or account number, or an ECH mandate that was given, right? And now we are hearing about this deep fakes, right? Somebody is mimicking your voice, right? So your mobile is stolen, I send a message to your wife, hey honey, I forgot my password, do you remember? She sends back the password, you have the card, or you have the phone. Now your phone is your card. So I think the approach has to go beyond a payment system, just not focusing too much. Yeah, payment system, it is sensitive data, but beyond payment systems, there are sensitive data. There are many of my friends who run PA business here, right? We all go and tie up with the aggregators who run school database for 50 schools, 100 schools. Once the payment is in our ecosystem, it is secure. Is it secure with the guy who is hosting the data of 100 schools? And what kind of information he is storing? I think that's where, when we talk about the overall ecosystem, I think that's where we need to get into. Similar, if you go to the shopping malls, chains and all that stuff, right? So payment transaction is happening. In addition to payment transaction, there is payment using loyalty, where the retail POS is directly connecting the loyalty system. Now, who is looking at whether that is encrypted or not? I think these are all the missing links that one needs to really look at when we talk about holistic approach. Yeah, from a piecemeal to holistic approach, it has moved, but within a specific system.
We also have this issue of onboarding, where millions of customers are getting onboarded, and even before the transaction has happened. And if there is a breach there or there's a disruption there, that can, because even before the customers had his first experience, things are going haywire.
And there are, when you give your KYC document, right, write the purpose of that particular.
And even the regulations. I mean, talking about KYC then, because Aadhaar, it's a great thing. Aadhaar is actually great. But the problem is who all can, rather I'm deliberately using the word quote unquote all. Who all can have the data? Because I have given data with trust from myself to, let's say, entity B, let's say hotel. Now, if they have the data, now who else? Because everything goes there. Why couldn't you just have just my photo and the QR code? Why do you want all the details in the world? So apart from technology, who all can see the data and how much? Again, there is this leak, and we would not have any way to fix it because this is not a technology problem, so to speak.
With the recent breach which was reported for HDFC Bank customer, if you would be aware, that it was a Lintra third party which had some of the information which got leaked. So it is not the breach from, so while they have been fully prepared, but there are people who are associated. But this is where Vamsi is saying that there is an ecosystem also that needs to be contributing to that, or which has to be in a holistic way to safeguard these kind of leaks which are affecting into any of the financial related damages that end customer gets affected with.
Have you built up some kind of mechanisms to put that on hold, to have a way around?
It will depend on how short or long the entire process of the cycle is. Sometimes it might, because this is a very generic, we don't have a silver bullet for this. Technology-wise, things can be done, but there are some transactions or some processes, inter-processes between two entities which are so short that even if you know the breach, it is actually too late. I mean, what can you do? This is not something like a kidney failed and you can transplant a new kidney and you are done. It's not like that, right? So it may or may not be true depending on how long or how how many jumps does that process have, so to speak, when we talk digitally.
When you build an application or when you build any solution, obviously you cannot consider security as an outside piece for now. So security is an integral part of it. So as an application developer, you will always have security as one of the layer inside the solution. But what happens is, I am the application developer and I am the guy who is securing my solution. Now, in that case, how well is it secured? Do I have a third party eye? Do I have a person who can actually authenticate whatever I have done is perfectly right? Have I followed all the guidelines? Have I followed all the compliances? So, well, so I think all in the room except Thales, all in the room here have certain solution to offer to the world. It may be B2C, it may be B2B.
Right.
But we at initial layer will definitely have some security parameters, some security solution applied to it. However, the third party is the one who can actually, authenticate your platform. And that is where that industry is completely different, who comes in with an expertise, who comes in with, a lot of knowledge. Yeah, absolutely. The entire domain
So would you
is
say
available for
they bring in some kind of trust element?
So I
A
would like
third party?
Application developer can only do so much as he understands security through his academics, through his experience. But a domain, it's not just about saying that I authenticate what you have done is right. It's also about a speciality of, so to say that, okay, this is what I know, and this is, if you have done this A, B, C, D, I know the F and E were missing, and that's what you have to put in. Because as an application developer, I might not know the nitty-gritties involved in, because this is actually a very, very separate domain, which in itself is a big, big career, which is in itself a big, big industry, which is itself a big business. People can just thrive on that and actually be dost of everyone, right from ICSA down to a mom and pop shop guy who is doing third party small softwares.
In fact, the domain will also differ in security.
Yes,
Someone
that's
building the application at front end will come up with an SDK saying that I will secure you with the malware. Someone else will be sitting inside server and saying that, I will secure you with certain data breaches.
I mean, guess why there are antiviruses and no matter which OS, they don't fix it knowingly or unknowingly. But still there is an antivirus which is kind of a virtual digital domain for security. That is the best analogy I could give you.
So
Let's look at it from the CEO perspective, or the board level perspective. Let's kind of raise it from an application and a transaction layer.
So, total security is always going to be a challenge of time. Look at ransomware. It stood at the test of time. It is because it's exposed to the basic vulnerability, that's human error. One click on the wrong link, or maybe connecting to the wrong or open Wi-Fi, and your entire system collapses. Your entire company can completely go down. It's not just about risk, managing risk. I think going forward, it will be more about acceptance of risk. How does an organization accept that risk? Does it have the appetite to accept that and the capacity to recover? I think this is what is going to be the future. Because,
But
the
the
amount
risk will keep increasing.
the
with
amount of
new-
data, the amount of systems, and the amount of data on the systems is so dependent nowadays, or interdependent nowadays, that every system requires data. But it means there's new vulnerabilities springs up.
Right.
And everything becomes vulnerable over a period of time. Yeah, absolutely. So whatever, however, wherever, whenever, as you proceed, and look at AI, look at ML. It's a double-edged sword. You might have AI, ML, who will give you the power to probably protect yourself, but at the same time, it gives that power to that hacker also, who can kill you, right? So you have the right tools with you, but at the same time, maybe a hacker step ahead of you. So I think as you go forward, an organization obviously needs to mitigate the risks, need to prevent risk, put systems, processes in place to avoid all this. But then at the same time, as you go ahead, you need to have the capacity to recover back, have the resilience to fight it out. So look at hackers. You might want to build a system in place where you might give them access to a file, but are they in a position to open that file and get the data? Can you build that? This is what probably we need to think, or probably I as an organization would like to think.
From a product lens, I have primarily been building products on the payment side, credit card and others. Purely from a product lens, if I look at the problem, there are two kind of security threats. One where the end user unintendingly is ending up giving access. And second, where the hacker has been able to hack it without the knowledge of the end consumer. So when we talk about financial inclusion or reducing that apprehension to adopt to digital payments, I think one aspect which we also need to consider is, are we able to child-proof that experience, right? So what I mean by that is, when we know that this is not the intended direction where we want the user to go, can I, through the journey or the app experience or interface, detect that there is a screenscaping software which just got installed on the phone, and can I block that transaction or ask for a step-up authentication which moves outside the device? Right? So child-proofing those experiences might be also one thought which we can consider.
So you're saying, to rephrase, prompt the user that there is the customer, that there is some kind of risk detected.
Right.
And to ask them to take additional steps, or at least tell them that.
Right.
This looks
so, for
something
example, recently I forced my mother to become digitally savvy. Okay. She has apprehension of using the mobile app, thinking that she'll end up clicking on some link. Right? So, while I want her to adopt to the digital payment ecosystem, I also understand that she wouldn't be able to distinguish between a genuine interaction versus a malware interaction.
Have any of you guys faced an issue where there's a copycat of your application or your website or something portal?
Yeah.
Spoofing happens. See, again, it comes down to the UX. When I said that, now the security realm has to reach the UX, and it has reached to a great extent. But as she was rightly saying, there's still a challenge. Like we were discussing, me and Prajakta here, we were discussing this. Until and unless the UX, I like that term, child-proofing. Until and unless the UX is child-proofed, this unintentional, because this is beyond the technical realm. Because as far as hackers are concerned, see, philosophically speaking, it's a game of 0 and 1. If I can break your algorithm, so can you break mine. It's as good as that, as good as your brain can go. So you see, it's actually a child-proof is a very good term, and this is exactly coming down to the UX part, which is going to be interdisciplinary, because UX it's another domain different from the API, which also involves psychology as well as technology, and the security domain itself, as he was saying some time back, it's a different domain. So it's interdisciplinary basically.
That's right. And I've been trying to study a bit of psychology, and it's an extremely complicated subject. For every one, there is an equivalent 0. I mean, it's like everything has two sides of the coin. Let's move further. What I want to bring in is, we talked about data, we talked about payments, but let's talk about the synergies between protecting data and protecting payments, and the differences between them. So if you can protect one and simultaneously protect the other, well and good, that's nice. But if you have to do something differently for both sets, then one needs to be aware. So what has been your experience as organizations, as fintechs, in finding the synergies between protecting data and protecting payments?
The one who cracks this is going to hit $1 billion industry. And the one who's not going to crack that is always going to build silos. Like you might keep building security at the infrastructure layer, the data layer, or the device layer, or the authentication layer, or encryption layer. So people need to step back and think that, is this strategy of the organization to build the numbers to satisfy the board of directors, P&L, and a focused strategy, or you want to invest in R&D, in information security, in this end-to-end layer? I'll tell you why. Now, India is in a digital influx, right? We want to make $10 billion economy, which means 65 crore population is in rural India. Most of the systems which are built here, and we are trying to solve for rural, not for rural India, but for urban India. UPI has done good, but not yet done great in rural. It is yet to capture, because there's a friction. Why there is a friction is because the digital India, where 65 crore population is there today, is digitally assisted. Digitally assisted to the merchant ecosystem who are using digital stack, well versed with it, and trying to connect the end consumer in the rural India. So how does he do that? The first problem statement is 150 crore population has got CASA account? No, they have not got CASA account. Okay. So is the government giving digital payments capability linked to CASA, or the direct benefit scheme going to the farmers, which has to be going to the bank account, which has to be withdrawn digitally? Yes, it's happening. 16,000 crore got transferred, but how this functions? The rural India people, where the bank account money goes, they go and stand in a queue with the BC partners who are out there, who give their thumb impression in a biometric. from which the data moves on, get validated with UIDI, get validated with NPCI, hits the banking server, and then in the real-time basis, his money gets directed, and the wallet amount and transactions in the BC Partners network work. I told you 7 layers here right now, far more complicated. Now, each and every stage, there is a data theft. In each and every stage, there is a fraudster who can come, and each and every stage, there can be failures. Just recently, if you guys are reading news and saying, all this biometric device are as per the government regulation, STQC certified device. Can it be cloned? Yes, it is. Yes. It can be cloned and it is being cloned. So do we have a solution for it? We don't have a solution for it. But is it integral part of the government ecosystem and regulatory ecosystem? It is integral part of the government ecosystem and integral ecosystem. Is ATM an alternative for it? It is an alternative. This is an alternative for ATM because ATM is unaffordable. In an ATM, the cost of transaction is 42 rupees. In biometric, in BC Partner, the cost of transaction is 13 rupees for the bank. So bank has to survive, right? So if bank has to survive, this ecosystem has to become far more foolproof. So what is the device vendor doing about security aspects? So device vendor who works on biometric just works on biometric solution with STQC, does not think about security solution. Okay, now is there other alternative mechanism? Yes, there is IRIS as an alternative mechanism, but not extensively use it because economically not viable. Okay, so is there an information security risk already identified and solved for IRIS? It is not solved. Is facial recognition and authentication validation come in UIDI? With 98% of accuracy it has come, but it is not adopted in digital India. Okay. Now is all the banking servers, authentication, transaction can identify real time the pattern when the amount has to get withdrawn within 1 minute? Can it real time identify, check in last 30 minutes transaction and block the transaction? Initiatives have been taken by NPCI. Okay. Is it 100% successful? It is not 100% successful. Okay, so the point I'm trying to bring here is, it's about the industry which has to synergize. Will every person in the industry will come and synergize and create one platform of security? They will not. Correct. So actually, this is an opportunity for an OEM to, rather than thinking in silos about security from infrastructure or from database or for authentication or from biometric devices, build it end-to-end at different layer and then stitch it together. That is the only solution. Otherwise, you will keep on happening fraud at one or the other layer.
So a lot of standards have to emerge then. That
absolutely. Like you asked a question
about... the regulator tends to avoid setting standards.
Correct.
In this country.
Yeah, you're asking about website, right? So you would have seen the video in the LinkedIn that is floating, right? So 160 websites, has got created by a smart guy in rural India. Okay, where are these frauds coming from? They are coming from tier 3 and tier 4 location. Jamtara, Aranya, Purnia. So we always think about solutioning to be provided for the backend, but not for the ecosystem. Until that time, you don't evolve beyond ecosystem and come from your functional PNL and silos, this is not going to get solved. But is this an opportunity? This is an opportunity for all of you. Who backs in is going to make money.
Forget rural India. I mean, me and my wife here, we stay in Goa. People are not, hardly anyone over there wants to use, digital transfers. Even now, like I can say they're easily 15, 20 years behind. So forget rural India. This is the whole problem.
I visit across the length and breadth of the country. Okay, my humble request is don't build solutions for your customers who are just banks and financial institutions, give server encryption solutions. Please walk to the rural masses, urban merchant stores and understand why is India still a cash economy. Okay, and please understand how many transactions does a person take to accept UPI. Okay, so we are actually working in silos. We are solving for organizations, large companies and organizations, and then we are saying this will solve your problem for your end customer. It doesn't. Till the time you don't understand the end consumer and build a solution, you're not going to really grow out here. You will be restricted to servers, you will be restricted to databases and encryption. There's no growth there.
Can we talk about the merchant ecosystem and the security that is required there? Is there a standard? How is that ecosystem progressing in terms of, because that's where many of the rural customers are first landing.
And that is where the opportunity is. So most of the antivirus and security providers, when I ask them that, do you have a device encryption and antivirus solution at an affordable rate for a B2B and B2C, he can extend to the B2C customers, which can be downloaded securely in the devices they use, either it's a laptop or a phone with biometric which they use it, which also stops other alert by giving alerts while downloading other apps to give an alert saying that this is there. So those solutions are not there in the market. People are not thinking about it. I have spoken to large antivirus organizations saying that this is a, it's like even if you get it for 99 rupees, you're talking about 100 crore customer. But they don't want to do it because everyone wants to sell the product which they've already built in because they have a P&L to report to. Yeah.
I
Everyone
think-
have to report a P&L. They want to achieve their numbers quarter on quarter.
Right.
We don't have an habit of investments into R&D. We don't want to explore new market. It's very clear.
The thinking to the point that you made, today we talk about AI, ML, and ability to mine big data, see behavioral patterns and all that. Isn't it? And I don't have a very evolved tech background, but isn't it logical to bring all this together and be able to simulate what kind of behavior should not be allowed and embed that within a antivirus, like you were saying?
Absolutely. So you need to have a design thinking team in your organizations. You don't have a practice of having this as a function.
Right.
Okay. So what we do is any ideation that comes from product doesn't go for development. The prototypes are taken to the market. We validate with the merchants because they are the entry point risk for everyone. We validate the functionality, and then the same design process is taken to the security and solution architect to identify how it can be, embedded into it. So till the time organization doesn't make design thinking as a core integral part of its solutioning, it is never going to happen. It's a conscious decision that you need to take. Otherwise, you're going to perish.
Just to add on to what Srivita just highlighted, that organizations need to have a spread across the data flow for the within the payment ecosystem and come up with technologies to secure that. Definitely, those are the areas which requires multiple collaboration with a lot of other players involved in it. And from a tech provider where we come from, we take care of a very niche part to help protect the organizations to at least to get secured by the piece of business that they have at their end. So that that part is actually taken care of, and wherever the data goes out from them, yes, then it becomes the responsibility for the other players who also need to adapt that practice or get into the habit of bringing those technology concerns. So the kind of technology we have, there is a very large investment that we do in terms of innovating these technologies and coming up with advanced features like quantum safe computing that would be there and all. But having said that, like you can just address to one niche area of and build your expertise around. When you try to spread too wide, it becomes very difficult to maneuver, and it is not that expertise. Then the expertise will get diluted. So that's where we foresee these kind of constraints in terms of making it into too many other areas. I mean, our domain remains very focused to help you protect for the data that you are responsible for, that you are being entrusted upon by the customers, and you need to uphold that trust, and that's where these kind of technologies from Thales helps you to uphold that trust.
As I said before, there are frameworks and people are building microservices. And now with ChatGPT and stuff, programming or putting things in the computer is not that difficult. It's all about the domain and the consultant who actually, because I'll tell you what, in maybe next 5 years, programming is going to be like high-tech data entry stuff. So it's not going to be about how I think in terms of the computer's program language logically and put it into it. It's about what the domain says and how better I can express it through a thing like a ChatGPT or whatever. So efforts in putting the code in place or putting these things in place is much lesser now. So the energy can actually be diverted to what we all agreed upon as to the domains and the consultant having that. And I think it wouldn't be late before we actually see it happening all over the place.
I want to get a generic understanding that when you approach maybe 10 partners of different types, how many of them do you see actually being sufficiently secure that you can engage with them? What is your success rate in terms of screening partners to be compatible with you?
Here, what I see is the missing link. Basically, whatever regulation or frameworks are available, what all certifications available are more directed towards security. Okay. But the larger issue is privacy. Yes. If you don't address that, security is of no use. Because unless and until your data, you secure your card payments, you secure the transaction data, but even your developers, application developers, architects, they are trained to secure the systems.
But not
They are not
privacy.
trained to identify what is personally identifiable information. And it leaks
Okay.
out. It constantly leaks out, and that is a major concern.
This is about privacy, as you rightly said. I mean, the question which I said, who all can see the data? Because I might make my system as secured as possible, but then when we hear about these data leaks and all, it's not because the systems were not really very secured. It's because whose hands are into it and what kind of a responsible mindset they carry, and how far those things are protected. So and he hit the nail in the head. It is absolutely about data privacy, because technology wise security is as good as it gets. And again, there is a limit to it. As I said, if I can crack your algorithm, you can crack mine. So absolutely about data privacy, and this is where the discussion goes beyond the realm of technology or programming. It goes into policies and regulations and the preventive measures.
Very interesting fact. I just wanted to continue. You asked a question about the merchant ecosystem. Okay, so we are all talking about data privacy. We are all talking about securing our data. But where is data? I mean, we are talking about API. We are talking about mobile app. But what about spreadsheets? What about text file? So when it comes to the thing is, if it starts from the regulation, RBI controlling banks, banks controlling then RBI controlling PAPG, when it goes down the line, somewhere at the end, where probably you have Bharat Pay, Phone Pay, QR available, you have Spice Money managing the the merchant ecosystem. Is that data available in some form which can be secured? Is that data available in a form which can be protected? So I think we also have to understand that, the question that you have posed here, there may be regulations available about data flowing around payments. But, sometimes back Sandeep questioned, what about the data which is not around payment? What about data which is specific to user? So what kind of privacy do we have there? What kind of security do we have there? So two different areas that we are probably trying to question, where I don't see regulation, or I don't see a very strong control, is when we build an internal ecosystem around a non-payment data. So what are the areas that I need to capture in my security standards? One. Secondly, if the data is finally exposed in the form which is easily readable for the merchant who is not tech savvy, so how is that secured in his device? So this is the area which is completely untouched.
There is an initiative that we have taken where we have come up with a platform of which we call it Community Edition, which we share it with the potential DevSecOps team within the organizations, and they can use it to build this privacy by design principle adopted into their applications that they are building up. So this becomes a very core offering that we are helping to with all the partners who are collaborating with us in terms of exploring the security, strengthening the security measures within their solution. So feel free to reach out to us in case you will be interested for this collaboration and explore the community edition of the data security platform Cypher Trust, which I just called out some time back. And you can definitely enable your team, and it has no cost. This is where we are coming as a facilitator for the organizations to work on it and get that enablement from the security, privacy, both within the same parlance. So that's a piece that we offer as well. And hopefully that will help you in your application development phase as well.
When I refer to regulations, I'll give you one slightly off-topic example, but I don't remember who was saying it sometime back rightly, so that we are not investing enough in the R&D and doing just the silos. The thing is, there are web accessibility content guidelines, WCAG it's called. I mean, I can talk about this because I'm myself visually challenged, and I know how difficult sometimes it becomes. Now, in countries like Israel, in countries like a lot of states in United States, it is a law and if you don't comply, you are going to be sued. Texas Olympics site was sued, by the way. So, I mean, people just don't want to do it because there is no, regulation happening. The same thing happens. That is the reason why that much of money is not going into it. There has to be some way of, handling this entire issue, because sensitization becomes very difficult in this huge country where the population is now, I think, overtaken China also. It's a long thing, and to say ideally we will sensitize everyone is wrong. So there has to be some kind of a mechanism here. If not sensitization, some kind of enforcement, has to be there.
There are a lot of initiatives that are taken by regulators in terms of information, training, and sensitization. Regulators have got separate budget, and where the partners in the ecosystem can participate, take that budget, consume that budget, and work on these training and sensitization program. We are not interested to do that and participate on that because we don't see that as one of the strategic line of business for us, one. Second, the merchant ecosystem is highly audited. When you look at BBPS, PPI license holders, very tightly audited by agencies outsourced by RBI with a very strict guidelines. To the extent that you're forced to do investment in information technology, to the extent where it is non-viable for your business. Also, in terms of banking partners in the financial ecosystem, since they are RBI regulated and they are license holders, they conduct frequent and regular audits to the extent that they not only check your ecosystem, data breaches, encryption, but also take sample size of your databases and check to what extent the breaches are there. So this sensitivity, because of regulation being strict, and we moving more in a faster pace towards digital ecosystem, has become far more superior now. So regulators are doing their job properly to the extent that government is doing a fantastic job. Okay, government has not only it's working like a corporate, right? So you have an India stack. When you say India stack, it touch across various sections of your not only financial sectors but also education, employment, and other areas. And they are creating an authentication layer for each of these applications and ecosystem through UIDI.
Okay.
So the end-to-end, so tomorrow, if I want to, you ask a question about how secure your partners are, right? In terms of questionnaires, standard guidelines, everything is yes. When the banking people come to us in terms of security, post-go live, they do audits. But what is the future? The future is I'll integrate with India stack, because I know that the government is going to bring encryption. I know that government is going to implement data privacy. And I know that when government implement, they will implement it for end-to-end stack for multiple industries. So what is the threat for corporates who are going to work in silos is they're going to be completely out of the game.
Okay.
I'm looking for India stack to be integrated because I know all the ecosystem of manufacturers will come. I know the security layers will come. I know the authentication layer will come. And I know if there is a data privacy breaches tomorrow, it is going to be difficult for them to answer it.
I just want to make one small point. The data that Mr. Ved Prakash was showing earlier, days taken to identify a security breach. I think 289 was the number of days, if I read it correct. I'm not sure if... the point is, when a security breach does happen, are we open enough as banking partners or as fintech players to share what the security breach was, and have we taken what measures we have taken, and can we try and reach a standardization around those? Right, so everywhere, at least that's the sense I get coming from a bank. I spent 16 years in a bank. What I see, without quoting a name, is that the effort is to plug that breach, but not publicize it, right? And maybe we can put this off the records, but is there a way, like our personal credit histories are completely reported to bureau, every lender can take a decision on what to lend, how much to lend and all that. Should there not be a regulatory overseeing body created to have a Hawkeye vision on the breaches and how we can standardize to plug those?
So I'll answer this question in two portions, right? I'll take the second question first. Is there a regulation in terms of bureau? Yes, there is a consent layer architecture. Okay. So the question of privacy and data breach comes in consent layer architecture if you have not given the consent and if you go ahead. So if you look at the latest digital lending guidelines, they have come very heavily on all digital lenders who are not NBFC licensed guys, but who collect data and give it to NBFC players. So the answer is yes, government is taking initiative. They're going strict on the guidelines, and consent layer architecture is a must to have. That's also answers your second question. The first question is there a standardization? Yes, there is a standardization. Why is there a standardization? Because RBI has got a 150-page checklist which it audits its bank, and the bank conveniently pushes it down to the ecosystem, as is. Is there other standardizations? Yes, PCI DSS certifications are standardized. ISO 27000 certifications are standardized. But the organization should not take this as a tick mark for an audit. If you take it as part of your DNA, and if you really, and when you say part of your DNA, that's when it solves all the first 20 minutes answers we did, right? Part of application, development, database, information, security. That will come when it's part of your DNA. So that's how it answers the question. I can say today, Indian banking and financial system is far more superior, far more better, and the solutions of not only technology and even information security is far more better compared to other Western and European countries. Of course, Israel comes number one. We have to learn a lot, but we are ahead of the curve. That's for sure.
You guys are fintechs. You're developing a lot of software, right? You're not buying security. You are buying security solutions from X, Y, Z companies and integrating with your setup. But obviously, there are security and privacy, personal data privacy issues within the applications that you're developing, right? How do you see, to what extent do you see yourself rewriting some of this code or upgrading this code with some security measures? How much of that work continues to happen apart from buying a solution from X, Y, and Z?
So there is always a code audit. It is a part of the process. I mean, every time you release a build, there is always audit system involved. So like I said earlier also, security is an integral part of what you're doing as an application. It's not something that you have to buy from outside. The third party is required only to authenticate what you're doing. So let us start from there. And then add the additional layer of security over it. So every time you code, every time you build something, you get the code audit done. Every time you release an application, you get your app security done. So that is always...
But tell me from the perspective of new regulations coming in that you have to make changes in your systems.
In payment, you cannot expect changes every year. You have to expect it every month. That is the amount of regulation coming your way. Yeah, for now. So the regulation is not just from RBI. The regulation, let's not talk about regulation alone, but let's talk about the industry practice.
Okay.
You will see that the requirement around changes will be from RBI. The requirement for changes may be from NPCI.
Okay.
Or you are following certain best practice, so you will have to follow that. Your framework is 2 years old. Now the framework has got upgraded, so you are going to change that framework. So you have to be abreast with it. It's not just about security, but also the performance.
When you ask that, how far, security and related issues are like HIV virus. You will always have to develop something new. It will mutate. You will have to again develop something new. The only good part is, as I said some time back, talk about ChatGPT or BADA or whatever. The coding part is now easy. To identify things and to get them done, again, as I said, there has to be a DNA into it, right? And I think every one of us, no one is going to deny, and it's not a fake denial. No one of us is going to claim that we are 100% secured, and at the same time, no one of us here is going to say that, no, we don't do it or we take it for granted. No, at least now we do 10, 15 years back, it was some specialized thing, an admin sitting in his cabin with a console, with a command line shell. Now it's not like that. And then as far as third party things are concerned, they are also very trustworthy, Verisign and all those things. So things are happening and they will always evolve. That's why when I said monthly, I said for now, because we don't know it's going to, it's not like COVID that you have found a vaccination and you're doing it. It's like HIV virus. It's going to always evolve. So that is the way.
So major challenge when you think about efforts is most of the data is lying in silos.
Okay.
Identifying that is the major challenge. Once you identify, then how you address it.
But can you explain why? Explain
from
more
application
how it
developer
is lying in silos.
Yeah. So I will explain from 2 points. One is from the product side and one from the tech side. Okay. So as Shrivas mentioned some time ago, design thinking, right? We are not used to design thinking. Means Indian organizations are really not used to it. At the design thinking level, if you have a proper addressal of what data has to be secured, what has to be a private data, and then it goes further into the development, it becomes quite easy to handle rather than waiting for the audit.
Okay.
Yeah. Second is when you come to the developer side. A developer is trained to debug everything that he is doing. So he has a habit to capture the data. He might capture it in the database, he might capture it in the logs or some other system logs, and it will not be found out until and unless there is an audit.
Okay.
So that is where the main challenge and the main effort lies.
So are we good at doing metadata management? Is there some good amount of maturity that we are moving towards?
So Manoj, we are good at everything, provided business doesn't put pressure to go live in 10 days and 15 days. Okay, so the problem statement actually starts from the business. So what happens here is, yes, the best practices and applications are available. The best practices in infrastructure are available. Even your OEMs, they give standard releases of patches. But when you have to take downtime in the night, and when your payment system business runs 24/7, it becomes difficult for you. Because now, see, if it's a merchant shop, it's available from 9 to 11. But if it is a digital ecosystem, it's 24/7. Okay, so you need to go live in 15 days. At the same time, you need to be available 24/7. Your systems has to be up and running the next day morning when the peak hours are there. So these challenges, and then some intelligent fellow has introduced sprints, which is very good for business. But is it good for information security? I don't know. So that's a trade-off. So what happens is, when it goes live, everyone is happy. And when there is a data breach, it's a tech issue. So it's a trade-off. Yeah, it's a thankless job. It's a trade-off. Can I be 100% secure? No. Will that be fraudster? Yes. Will I do X amount of revenue and lose Y amount of revenue? Yes. Do you have a risk appetite? You need to identify. You need to define what is your risk appetite. You can't be 100% foolproof. If you want to be 100% foolproof, then sell ice creams. Don't be into the business of financial services. Yeah.
I would like to add to it.
What do your bank partners expect from you all in terms of a risk appetite? Is there clarity on that kind of discussion with your banking
There is
partners?
always a different interpretation a bank has for any regulation that comes.
No, forget the regulation. I'm just like
So
talking
the
risk appetite.
compliance.
You might boast of the fact that fintech and banks are great partners. They work hand in hand. They see a great future for themselves. But when it comes to liability, no, it's only the partner, not the bank.
What happens is when it comes to audits, like we are an NBFC as well. So RBI does a very strict audit of all banks and NBFCs when it comes to data privacy and security issues. So there is an audit done, an audit report is submitted and everything. But when it comes to the partners, third-party partners that a bank or NBFC is working with, the RBI wouldn't have a hawk's eye view over there.
Right.
And also for fintechs and banks, apart from big partners like payment gateways, etc., these are bigger companies. They would have practices in place. But there are smaller partners, like there would be a collection agency somewhere in Bhopal who is working just collect payments, and a data has gone to them for collecting payments. And this would be a field agency which is collecting payments from customers. So the kind of data that you have shared with them, there are some companies who would go to the extent of sharing an Excel with the of customers to the company that there is a 200 customer list on Excel, the mobile numbers, everything is open with them. So what I see going at as a right practice to do would be just like in financial services, there is an independent audit done every year of your financials. So it's necessary that there is a data audit, privacy and data security audit done for every partners, because that would be much more viable solution, because expecting that every partner has the best tech and best data privacy practices is not possible.
Correct.
You would be dealing with small partners, because if you have to grow in tier 2, tier 3 cities, you would be tying up with small partners. So having the requirement of having data security and privacy audit every year from every partner, so that they submit this report to the bank or to the NBFC, would be a right practice, because that would because anyways this is something that we already do in the finance space. There is an independent audit happening of your financials every year. So a similar independent audit happening for the data privacy and security part from a third party agency would certify the standards that the particular company has.
Interesting thing that is happening now. I interviewed one company that's investing into fintechs, and they're saying that the fintechs are getting specialized into health fintechs, logistics fintechs, entertainment fintechs, whatever it is. So it's not just finance sector now that the fintechs are engaging with. They have their roots in hospitals, in airlines, in trucks, in chemist shops, and whatever else. So and everywhere that the fintech goes, the data follows them.
Yes.
The whole thing is built on data. So I'm getting the impression it's going to get extremely complicated in terms of data sensitivity.
I'm not sure.
So just to add to Rajesh and Shrivat's, that
Ah.
if we see an ecosystem perspective, so we are talking about securing data at our end, at the partners, at the merchant's end. We work a lot with the government institutions. We have a n number of layer of securities and checks and audits and compliances and everything. But if you see a small institution, say institution like a urban local body, they'll have a data in their Excel sheets, and it is their property taxes and water taxes and all those kind of a data, and they don't have any layer of security.
Correct.
Like probably their website are hosted on a shared servers. So securing data from an originator point of view, like if there's a breach happening there, so what do you expect that down the line what will happen? So that's another different ball game altogether that has to be protected on the institutional side. Just one more point. We recently started doing a BBPS biller onboarding because of the government institutions where we were. So a lot of places where we were doing this survey that who has the integrated systems, 8 out of 10 institutions doesn't have any integrated solution. They said that we'll give you an Excel sheet, you upload and do the bill payments on BBPS.
Oh.
Now BBPS is such a regulated piece today, and on the originator side, if I have an Excel data, like how do I supposed to protect it out?
Correct.
But let me clarify. This is a very sensitive one. I need to clarify this point you're saying. But the interface of API which is given to the fintech providers from the BBPS provider, right, consolidated, is in a very secured way. Now, what happens in the backend? You're touching the backend part of the BBPS, right? State-wise. Yes, that needs to be solved. It's more internal. But the external exposure part of the API is far more secure. Every 3 to 6 months, we get a lot of releases for changes to be done. And that platform is also evolving now. Our business in BBPS has grown dramatically very high. Okay, and it's a platform that is going to grow another 5x, 10x, 15x very soon. Investments will come in those areas, but you should look upon this as an opportunity.
No. So definitely. So that's what the point is. Once we have the data, then we are able to secure it from the endpoint. But if we see from the source point of view, so there's still a lot of.
About it, I'm saying.
Yeah.
So you have one more area of business there.
Agreed. So that is what we have been doing for a lot of government institutions.
This is exactly what I was telling, that identify gaps in each of this layer and start pitching your solution. Rather than,
there's a huge opportunity up there.
My question to Ved is, I mean, what we are all observing is it's really complex and it's dynamic and fluid situation. How does it work for a solutions provider like you to address not the need, but to address the complexity as such? Maybe not you're giving a solution, but being a part of the think tank, that these are the complexities, your teams can work on it or something.
So understanding the complexity, we are actually in a position to simplify this complexity with the technology that we are bringing in. And that is where we are helping organizations to first enable this last line of defense that through the technology that we offer in terms of protecting your sensitive data and the use of HSM that most of the payment ecosystem does is primarily to safeguard the PIN that you do into the transactions, or especially for the BPS applications or the UPI applications, or at the ATM switch, that these are tightly coupled to help you secure the mechanisms that are very important for your business processes to happen. From there, I think gentlemen rightly said that we need to understand where all the sensitive data is lying. And first we need to start the journey from data discovery and classification. So the technology stack helps you to achieve all these, and this baseline against the industry best practices to ensure that the checks and balances at your end is taken care of. You have been being secured from the perspective of the applications that is fulfilling your business function, from the perspective of usage of those applications. With the endpoints, it is not. I do agree. Those are the again areas that. But our strategy course of direction is very much to help organizations to maintain that trust for the data that they are accountable for, and really help them to comply to the stringent regulatory landscape under which they adhere to, and to further facilitate them, especially when the data privacy laws are getting prominence, and privacy by design as a principle is becoming very critical. We have extended the community edition for our data security platform to all the partners to go and use it, come back with the feedback so that we can further enable you. So I would definitely suggest for all of you to touch base with Sanjeev, who is the point of contact for us here, and feel free to use it with the team that is building up on the application processes within your organization, and give us the feedback which will enable further to improvise on these technologies and make you also be more, I would say, future-proof against any of those problems that you would foresee in the data security side of it.
He asked about the solution provider point of view. I think, I'll tell you in a very simple term. In fact, this question should have come at the very beginning, and then it could have gone from there. I believe, and there are a lot of solution providers here, that now that complexity is the part of the need. Just like there are test cases written, automated test cases written for seeing how the software is functioning. Is it exactly doing what it's supposed to do? Similarly, this complexity of security is now part of the need. Everyone understands that. And to give you an optimistic reality, the way a lot of tech frameworks, as we call them stacks, a lot of techies would know here. In fact, it comes from there, fortunately, nowadays. This security aspect, the way the middleware works, the way, the two-way end-to-end encryption works, the way digital signatures are working. The frameworks have come with modules and layers of stack, which actually enable this without techie guys taking a lot of pain to understand and do that. It's all about the audit, which a lot of people here talked about, which is more important. Otherwise, as a solution provider, I don't see a great problem because the tech stacks are evolving in that way. Talk about any open source tech stack, and the best practices are inculcated. So it's not a big pain for us to start from the basics and raise it up from there. It's about the audits, which are the ones which will point us back if some things are missing and ironing out the facts.
Absolutely, agree with you on that. And I just also wanted to take this moment. I wanted to introduce all of you to a person who had been there to build this business that I described from SafeNet days. So Ashish Thanawala is the person who has started the SafeNet business in India, led it to the stature where it got acquired by Gemalto, and then further Thales. So today he leads the complete partner business for the APJ region, and he has a team where Sanjeev is part of it. We all have worked under his mentorship and guidance. So I'm delighted to have him really to take time out and hear out the insights from you guys. So Ashish, I would just like to have 2 words from you before I just pass it to Manoj.
Thanks for putting me on the spot, Ved. Pleasure to meet you all. I've been listening to what the gentleman has been saying from a design perspective. I also believe if we want to collaborate in the larger ecosystem, we need to plug in the gaps at various levels. And as you said, it's obviously an opportunity. From where we are, I think the challenges and the complexities that everyone has mentioned is pretty vast. We can't play a role everywhere. If I may say, if Thales were to address the entire problem, it would be like putting the cartwheel in front of the horse. But we do have, as Ved mentioned, the need to collaborate. We have come out with this community edition. We would love to have your feedback. Use it. At the end of the day, it is your team who's developing these applications. And you would be knowing best how to use the code. We would love to understand and then evolve on our Cypher Trust platform, whether it is really helping or not helping. So we can go give feedback to our executive management, whether whatever we've come out with in order to build further trust. Is it good, bad, or ugly? So I would recommend and encourage you to use it. Let us know, so then we can, maybe collaborate more further.
All this emphasis on DevSecOps, what is your company doing in this area, particularly for fintechs, that might be useful for fintechs?
So typically, the large organizations who have taken the enterprise edition, it is quite an investment from their side. But we have agreed to collaborate with the emerging partner ecosystem in the fintech and offer it for your feedback. So feel free to use that and let us know.
And is DevSecOps something that you look to when you are looking for a partner, whether they use DevSecOps in the way they do their software development, and is it prevalent enough today in the country?
A part of the audit checklist. So they look at best practices which is available or not available. What they're talking about is a one level ahead is automation. The rest all is manually done with best practices which is there in the place. So it is being used extensively. It's one of the part of the checklist for bankings, regulations, and other areas.
Okay.
But what is important is, see what happens is, there is no CISO in the team out here, right? And we're talking about information security. Not even a single CISO is there out here.
No, we deliberately didn't have CISOs.
Yeah, so that's a friction. CISO has always been in friction, right? So what we have done is, see, consciously you need to take certain decisions. Like we know that partners will have to go deep with one solutioning. So now the new model, okay, to disrupt or at least solve our problem, what we have done is we have coined a new term called as vCISO, virtual CISO. So organizations which want an expertise outside an approach for information security to remove the personal biasness within the organization. You have a CISO who follows regulation, but who has a cup of tea with the CIO, business heads and everyone, where the comfortable exception forms are filled, and you still go ahead with the medium and low risk and go live with the applications. Get stopped when you have a virtual CISO coming in, which means he's a guy who independently reports to the board and management team, independent of what the BISO, CIO, and the tech organization does. Another thing is what we are trying to do in the industries, we are expecting this vCISO to come with multiple solutions where they find out not only give CISO as a service, but also bring solutioning. I don't want to go to multiple partners and get licenses.
Okay.
So I want this vCISO as an organization to give human resources, audit resources, and also technology solutioning, rounding around information security coming across the entire ecosystem. So now since we are not getting end-to-end solutions from each of the providers, we have started identifying a way how we can evolve a new model in which we can solve our problem better, so that we focus on our core, which is solution to be provided to B2B and B2C partners. And this can be a separate vertical which can be focused without diluting the information security, and still the solutioning of end-to-end can come in. The reason I spoke about this in the end is this is going to how the entire industry is going to evolve. And this is how the vCISO
question that we had about holistic approach.
Yeah, and vCISO with people, process, and technology end-to-end will make $1 billion story.
I like this idea of virtual CISO because, CISO for me, is an investment every month. We do an audit 3 times every month probably, every 3 months, every 6 months, every year. RBI will have 6 months audit. A CISO or an InfoSec guy will have a 3 months audit. You will have the QSC doing a 6-month audit. Every audit you do, you feel great. You're done. But every audit, at the end of every audit, there's a huge checklist which comes out. And you have to do this, which actually means you have to invest a lot of money to comply to all those extra checklist points which the CISO has raised. In our industry, as somebody mentioned, we work on very wafer-thin margins.
Correct.
It's an industry where you hardly make money, negligible money, So with these checklists coming in, with these investments being done, is it really becoming a sustainable model? Is a question. Where you said, do you believe or do you rely on your partners? Now, in an entire ecosystem, you will have maybe a micro enterprise in the system. You will have a major one. You will have a small enterprise. And you expect everybody to comply to all the regulations. You expect everybody to comply and invest in all those checklist points. It is not possible. Look at it practically. We want everything. We want the best of best practices possibly. But is it really practical? Is it really pragmatic that every ecosystem or that every player in this ecosystem is complying to the entire requirement of the industry? No, it is not.
It's not.
We want to have everything. We want to have the best of the best. But do we really get everything out of it?
Intentionally or non-intentionally?
At the end of it, as a owner of an organization probably, or as a CFO of an organization probably, he would think, okay, can I part away with this? Can I leave it aside for next year? Can I not do this year? Can I not? I will be practical. Whenever a CISO comes and knocks at my door, half of the times I will say, okay, next time. No, because I know he's coming with a pain problem. I know he is coming with something which he wants to invest.
See, I always give an analogy to my team, whenever we are upgrading our product stack. This is like a brake. Often I ask my people who come new especially, why do you have brake to your vehicle? So they'll say, to stop the car, you want to just, be where you are. I said, no. The brakes are there because you should be able to drive at a very high speed. Because the brakes are there, even if you're driving at 100 miles, you can still stop and, and the better the brakes, the better you will be confident enough. So, it's more or less like that. And as you said, practical thing will never happen. The ideal gas will never exist, more so because nowadays data has become money. So that's why I just made a short comment saying intentionally or non-intentionally. Nowadays, you get all these free apps. Why they're giving it to you free? Because they want your data. And that process, there is a very high, they might not intend to leak your data to someone else, or they may also intend you can put this offline, because a lot of companies will come and ask me whether you can prove it. I don't want to say anything like that. The thing is, it happens, but unintentionally in the process of making data your money, there could be, because there's so many endpoints to it, there is a high possibility the breach happens. So, as you rightly said, yes, practically we want best of the best, and then we still want the data security, and still we want to make data our money. Then everything can't happen in you can't have the cake and eat it at the same time. It's as simple as that.
Can you share your insight about how, as we increasingly becoming digital, how handicapped people, and particularly visually handicapped people, are participating in the digital ecosystem, and what kind of risks they are facing because of whatever kind of gaps that you understand about the system? Can you give us a picture on that?
Yes.
How do you see it getting better over the years?
Yes, I will get back to the first question and my first reaction. When you asked about holistics, I said it's about the user experience, because the security has to be brought there. We always talk about data security, server security, and we have talked enough about it. And we do have our company and we do it as well. The thing is, when you talk about inclusion and accessibility, it's not just restricted to disabled people per se. I think even the rural people are information disabled. They also have a different kind of a disability.
Okay.
So it's not just about visually disabled, but still I'll tell you that a lot of audio interfaces are there. We need to see how secure they are. The thing is, accessibility, in fact, when it comes to security, it becomes even more important to have all the accessibility guidelines in place, because now more and more disabled community is becoming tech savvy with all the technologies available. But accessibility nowadays is only restricted to how the information can go from the widget to a screen reader, for example, or how the structure of a document can be made audible to a blind user. But it has to go beyond that. The accessibility has now come, because a lot of times when I'm using apps, I wouldn't take names of banking apps, but a lot of times when I have to tell my wife to help me out because they are not accessible. And if I do a wrong thing, I'm going to lose a lot of my money. So, accessibility has to go hand in hand with security. I talked about all the other things about the UI UX, and we discussed about how microservices and how frameworks have adapted themselves to give you the best practices at the ease, as I told you. But then this also has to come in, and accessibility should go hand in hand, and see how you can seamlessly synergize with the security parameters with the accessibility point of view.
Is that happening, the security parameters?
Yes, to some extent, yes. But again, it will come down to sensitization, some regulations. India is quite behind when it comes to accessible sites. Talk about banking, talk about public sector. Only that's why there are quite a lot of companies who are only doing accessibility audits and accessibility. There is a company called Barrier Breaks. There are several companies who are doing it. The reason is it is not being part of the DNA of the development community by default. That is the reason such businesses are thriving. So this opportunity, you can take it as a plus, or you can also take it as a minus, that we have to do such a thing.
Very hard to convince the industry that the apps which are launched should have a specific profiling of sound-based apps, especially when I was in CIO of one of the trading company. So when I want to launch the app, I said that, okay, let's launch this in such a way that it can have voice commands for understanding what is the price of a particular stock, and with voice commands you can be able to place an order. Now this helps two people, right? Like he rightly said, it's not only visually impaired. When you add regional languages to this, it helps rural India. Second, it also helps the urban India when you have your phone connected via Wi-Fi to your car. When you're driving, you can place orders. So this was a solutioning which can actually solve multiple profile of people. But the moment when you bring innovations and solution, the first thing people ask is, what is an ROI do I get? How many people will use it? Does it justify? So if tomorrow RBI comes in a regulation and say that you need to have compulsorily regional languages and also announcement-based apps, everyone will implement. Now that is the problem statement where we are in. None of the payment space apps which are available in B2C does not have voice commands. But one area in the merchant solution which we have solved for is when the payment transaction is successful, we have soundbox available. Now, like he rightly said, the soundbox is available not only for visually impaired, it's also for rural India and people who want to understand whether the transaction was successful.
And there's a
Spectrum has to be
security
broad.
element in that.
If there has to be a business opportunity, the spectrum has to be broad. I mean, I'm myself a visually disabled person, but I totally understand when there are so many priorities on an investor's list. You know, fortunately, our investor is very much vision oriented as far as he makes accessibility a mandatory part, which is kind of fortunate and one of the biggest reasons why we are together. But the fact is, you absolutely have to look at with a broader perspective. As I said, people are information disabled. People are phobic towards using technology. What if I click a wrong thing? But if you can't say a wrong thing, right? I mean, unless you have a severe problem, right? And then it's not just about voice-driven thing, even gesture-driven thing, because there are deaf and dumb people. Again, that would be a thing, and gesture-driven things can work for other people who are not deaf and dumb, who have, they're constantly into something, and they're talking to some people, and they just want to do at the same time. It's all about multitasking and multi-processing. So it's like that. But then obviously the biggest benefactors would be the disabled community, which is indeed a huge one here.
Thank you for joining us. I think it was a very intense discussion.